about the mechanism of memory. It can be, let's say, physiological and cellular or molecular basis of memory. So david7sansitheater@gmail.com. Contact, consult. All right. Yeah, that is it. Don't forget to subscribe for better and more videos. You like and share to other students to also enjoy the science at this channel. Alright, the mechanism of implicit memory. In the recent video, we described the memory, and you can see we talked about the implicit and explicit memory. So, the mechanism of implicit memory. Short-term storage of implicit memory for these simple forms of learning. This is habituation, sensitization, and associative learning. These are non-associative. So non-associative and associative learning, or what you can totally call incidental learning. All right, result from changes in effectiveness of synaptic transmission. They change the effectiveness of synaptic transmission, and that is majorly to cause what we call short-term storage of implicit memory or implicit short-term. Okay, so mechanism of short-term implicit. One, if we talk about habituation, how effectiveness it is changed is here. So in habituation, there is exhaustion of chemical neurotransmitter. As at high rate of impulse transmission, the synthesis of chemical transmitter fails to keep pace with the rate of release of the neurotransmitter. All right. So there is progressive inactivation of calcium channels. This is also another point, reason for habituation to occur. And sensitization is basically presynaptic facilitation of an impulse that occurs due to calcium-mediated changes in adenyl cyclase that results in a greater production of cyclic AMP. So we also talked about this facilitation being brought about by the third facilitator neuron, which usually releases 5-hydroxytryptamine. Yeah. So apparent and classical conditioning. These are explained by the formation of new functional intracortical or subcortical connections in the nervous system. In the video where I was talking about learning, I described the evidence to show that there is intracortical and subcortical formation of new functional connections in the nervous system. Yeah, okay, so apparent conditioning arises due to this. Sensitization is due to facilitation, presynaptic facilitation, and habituation is due to progressive inactivation of calcium channels. All right. So let's talk about mechanism of long-term implicit memory. That was short-term. They just changed the effectiveness of impulse transmission. In long-term, the process by which transient short-term is converted into stable long-term, we call it consolidation. So consolidation is changing the short-term to long-term memory, which is more stable. Consolidation of long-term implicit memory for simple forms of learning involves three processes. Simple forms, I've talked about them recently in implicit, which was associative and non-associative learning. So consolidation occurs due to processes which are here: gene expression, new protein synthesis, growth or pruning of some synaptic connections. They can grow new synaptic connections or prune off some. Alright, so that has been implicit, both long-term and short-term. That is the molecular or cellular basis of implicit memory. So let's talk about the molecular basis of explicit memory. And both semantic, we talked about that explicit can be semantic or episodic. So both semantic and episodic types of explicit memory are the result of at least four related by distinct types of processing. These include encoding, consolidation, storage, and retrieval. Those four processes are take place to cause what we call explicit mechanism of short-term explicit memory. So we say that encoding, consolidation, storage, and retrieval. So when we come this side, we'll talk about short-term explicit memory. The mechanism, let's talk about encoding. This refers to the process by which newly learned information is attended to and processed when first encountered. When you first encounter that information, how you attend to it, that's what we call encoding. And occurs in hippocampal formation for short term. In the hippocampal formation, there is continuous neural activity in reverberating circuits. All right. So activation of synapses on presynaptic terminals that typically result in prolonged facilitation, i.e., long-term potentiation or prolonged inhibition, that is long-term depression, and accumulation of calcium in axon terminals may eventually lead to enhanced synaptic output from the terminal. So in the hippocampal formation, majorly three things occur: reverberating circuits, activation of synapses, and also accumulating calcium in axon terminals, which may lead to enhanced synaptic output at the very terminal. So activation of synapses can be on presynaptic terminals, and it will cause prolonged facilitation, which will involve long-term potentiation or inhibition and long-term depression. Okay, so those three are important during encoding. Neurosubstrate for encoding is the hippocampal formation. And if you look at this is how reverberating circuits occur. When you receive information in the unimodal and polymodal association areas, which you can say prefrontal cortex, limbic system, parieto-occipital, and temporal lobes of the cerebral cortex. When you receive information of the brain, when you receive information in these association areas, the information will go to parahippocampal cortex, entorhinal cortex. It can go and come back. That is reverberation. Prefrontal pathway will take it to dental gyrus. All right. Through motor fiber pathway, it goes to hippocampus. Through the scapha collateral pathway, it will go to the subicillum. And still, entorhinal cortex can project to all the three areas here. And from subicillum, it reverberates to entorhinal cortex. Then it can go back to perirenal cortex, back here, or come back. So it uses either way, that is reverberating circuits I've been talking about during encoding in the hippocampal formation. So it's better you know this. This is how information will flow when encoding is occurring. So mechanism of intermediate long-term explicit memory. We said intermediate, there is that memory which is not too short and not long. Not short, not long. So that is intermediate long-term explicit memory. This one, there is temporary chemical or physical changes in either the presynaptic or postsynaptic membrane that can persist for a few minutes to several weeks. Intermediate long term. Long term can be in years, months, but yeah, short term can be just minutes or seconds. So temporary chemical or physical changes in either presynaptic or postsynaptic membrane that can persist because there will be a mechanism for intermediate longer term. Let's talk about mechanism of long-term memory. First, there is consolidation, which refers to those processes that alter newly stored information and still label information so that it can be made more stable for long-term storage. That is consolidation. Just convert short-term to long-term memory. And in general, 5 to 10 minutes is required for minimal consolidation, whereas 1 or more hours may be needed for stronger consolidation. Alright? If this time is not allowed for consolidation to occur, the data in short-term memory is completely forgotten. That is what happens when you forget. Alright, so if this time is not allowed for the consolidation to occur, the data in short-term memory will be completely forgotten. Let's talk about the process of consolidation. It involves expression of genes and synthesis of new proteins, giving rise to structure changes that store memory stably over time. That is what happens in consolidation. And the structure changes will include increasing the number of synaptic vesicle release sites, that is increasing surface area of the presynaptic membrane. They can also increase the number of available synaptic vesicles. So, number of available synaptic vesicles, these are containing the neurotransmitters. It can increase the number of synaptic terminals. Okay, one neuron cell can have several terminals, several buttons. Okay, and changes in the shape or number of postsynaptic spines. They change shape of postsynaptic membranes. Yeah, favor consolidation. And the neural substrate for long-term storage will be, while the encoding process for short-term memory involves the hippocampus. So this, long-term memories are stored in the various parts of the neocortex. Okay? And apparently, the various parts of memories, call it visual, olfactory, auditory, etc., are located in the cortical regions concerned with these functions, and the pieces are tied together by long-term changes in the strength of transmission at relevant synaptic junctions, so that all the components are brought to consciousness when the memory is recalled. So this is basically what is happening. Visual, auditory, olfactory, these are located in the cortical regions concerned with these functions. But these pieces can be tied together, alright, by long-term changes in strength of transmission at relative synapses, so that they can be brought back to consciousness if the memory is being recalled. How is memory retrieved? Look at this. Retrieval of memory refers to the processes that permit the recall and use of stored information. Retrieval involves bringing different kinds of information together that are stored separately in different storage sites of the brain, of the cortex. And retrieval of information is most effective if it occurs in the same context in which the information was acquired and in the presence of same cues, retrieval cues, that were available to the subject during learning. The cues you used to learn, if they are available, retrieval occurs easier and faster, and it's most effective in that sense. All right. Okay. So here you can note the deja vu phenomenon. You can research about it, but it basically talks about that providing the cues so that retrieval is faster. Let's talk about the working memory. Both initial encoding and ultimate recall of explicit memory, and perhaps some forms of implicit memory as well, are thought to require recruitment of stored information into a special short-term memory store. Alright, initial encoding and ultimate recall of explicit memory will require recruitment of stored information into a special short-term memory store. This is what we call the working memory now. The components of working memory have the attention control system, that is part of working memory. We can have rehearsal systems. You know, rehearsing enhances encoding and consolidation. Okay, so rehearsal systems that include articulatory loop and visual spatial sketchpad. These two you can read about them, but I will still show you a video where I have the diagrams showing this, the pictorial views of these. have that cherry loop and visual spatial skate pad. These are rehearsal systems, plain attention control systems. Those are the components of working memory. Thank you for liking the video. Please subscribe and share to other students to also enjoy. Our videos are good. Subscribe for more and better videos. Yeah, I've talked about working